I'm Francesca Marie Smith. I am a PhD candidate at USC's Annenberg School for Communication and Journalism, but I also work independently as a consultant, mostly for the entertainment industry. Immersive is, I think, a challenging term because a lot of people think of it as a constraint of technology. So immersive technology, something like virtual reality, physically blocks any type of other input from coming to the audience. So they really are just completely surrounded by whatever text you want to show them. But of course, if you think about it psychologically, that's not true. People can be immersed in a book, or they can be immersed in a campaign, or immersed in a sports game. It's really much more a state of mind than it is a forced technological situation. So for me, something that's immersive does create that sense of, you've forgotten all about the rest of the world. I can't remember the scholar, but it's that state of flow kind of thing. But it really is about this deep engagement. It's about, at the very least, in the moment, having real focus and emotional investment in a story or experience. And then even when you leave that experience, having it stay with you, having integrated into your psyche and into the rest of your lived experience in some way. The field that I am in is a little bit difficult to describe or contain, but what I care about is creating meaningful experiences and meaningful relationships between a text and an audience. Sometimes that happens fictionally through entertainment. Sometimes that happens in a real lived experience where people need to rely on a certain software or hardware to help them make sense of or deal with an environment, a situation. It really tends to be a wide range of ways in which people need to interact with the world around them, and they can rely on story, they can rely on communicating with other people, or they can rely on technological tools to help them do that. And in all of those cases, it's just a different form of experience design. It's something that I playfully talk about as being a professional empath, of being able to put yourself into the position of an audience member and think, what is meaningful to them right now? What do they need? What are they looking for? What will inspire them or excite them? I have really appreciated the ability to look back at some of the foundational theoretical frameworks of the field of communication, going back as far as Aristotle, and thinking about how those insights are still relevant today, even though it seems like everything is still very new and very scary in a lot of ways. There's a lot of disruption. There's a lot of new technology and shifting business models and shifting relationships between audiences and companies. And things like marketing and advertising don't necessarily mean the same things now that they did in the Mad Men era. But there are still some tools and truths that are incredibly relevant that academia brings to the table. And I think now is a very exciting moment to be able to look at this exciting chaos and think about what is new, but also what's the same, and how do we approach all the newness. I am very interested in rethinking persuasion specifically. So if you're thinking about Aristotelian rhetoric and you're thinking about rhetoric as having a specific end goal for the audience, either to convince them of a truth or to engender them with a specific value or to motivate them to take some sort of action, those mechanisms of persuasion are, of course, still present, but I think there's a broader way we can think about persuasion. And if you reframe the nature of the audience and company interaction into something that's more transactional, that's a little bit more give and take, where you can clearly identify, here is what I want of the audience, but here are the things I need to provide to that audience for these things to happen. I find that very interesting. I think that it's interesting to think about storytelling as a mechanism of persuasion, as an invitation, that's another big word for me, into a world you're creating and saying, hey, I want to build a relationship with you. I don't just want you to buy a ticket to my movie. I want you to care about these characters. I want you to follow the text across the different media. I want something from you, and being able to clearly articulate what that want is and what you're willing to give as a creator in exchange for that. That's something that's inspiring me a lot right now. And of course, some of the media that's just emerging right now, being able to ask those questions and intelligently say, here's what this medium is really good at, here's what we can do. And I think this was something that Jeff Long inspired me to think about at the Annenberg Innovation Lab. What kind of stories can we tell in a new medium that we could never tell before? What is unique to this moment, this technology, and this opportunity? And then the last one I'll mention is a little bit more from the rhetoric side. Kenneth Burke talks about the dramatistic pentad and how we might tell a story and just think about things like the agent and the scene and the act and the purpose, things like that. But in a world where transmedia storytelling is just the norm, it's the expectation, it's now not just about telling one story about one agent and one scene. It's about layering those representations and saying, okay, well, I might tell an entirely different story about this scene, and thinking about ways that you have to think I guess the academic term would be intertextually now, in ways that maybe weren't so pressing before. I always hesitate to say that I can tell someone how to follow in my footsteps, because it's been the kind of path that I couldn't have predicted at all. And in almost every case, I haven't gone out seeking a particular job or, identified myself necessarily as, oh yes, I am an experience designer. Instead, what has happened is I keep having interesting conversations with interesting people. And pretty soon, a lot of times in the context of USC and the Annenberg Innovation Lab, they would realize, okay, there's something here. There's a valuable perspective that doesn't necessarily require a specific body of knowledge about, the specific way a software system works or a specific technology. But there's just something about approaching things. One of the terms that's been used for me that I really like is creative critical thinking. And there's something about creative critical thinking that's so valuable and so necessary that I've just been asked to help out on so many different projects. I mean, hired, paid as a consultant on a range of projects from mobile apps to more traditional animation to transmedia world building that I think will focus on a podcast first, and even all the way to a platform designed for K-12 environment emergency response, which is so totally different from what I would think of as my expertise or my background. But none of that matters, because right now there is this common thread of experience and of interaction and engagement that requires, that demands, that asks for this creative critical thinking. So I've been incredibly lucky, and I'm incredibly grateful for all of these work opportunities consulting. I worked with Niantic on Ingress. They're the company that did Pokemon Go and now Harry Potter Wizards Unite. I did a project for Supercell Clash of Clans Battle Royale. I've been a part of building out the world of Subway Surfers. So I think like 3 of the most popular mobile games that are there, they're all interested in this kind of world building, this expanding of the story beyond just the game platform. I'm trying to think what else. The K-12 emergency response platform is called Incident Commander, and it's totally outside of the entertainment industry. I've been working on a new project with Madison Wells, which is they have an entire division called Universe, because they're so interested in the idea of building out something that's bigger than just any singular medium or story. And that's, of course, what Henry Jenkins talks about, that transmedia is, I think it's his quote, that transmedia is a story that's too big for one box. Maybe it's so difficult to explain what I do concisely because it's always different. You have to just come to the experience with, or to the project, I guess I should say, with an open mind and a willingness to say, okay, what do we have here? What is the experience? And again, that professional empathy. If I were the audience, how would I feel? How would I feel about this experience? What else would I be wanting? And what else could the creators give to make that experience more meaningful? So it really is just case by case. I've been doing a project with the Aquarium of the Pacific, and they actually have opened a new wing that's really focused on sustainability, climate change, and some of the more urgent, pressing issues that affect the Earth and the ecosystem. So I've been doing that in partnership with Artifact Technologies, which is a small mobile technology company that specializes in location-based experiences. That gives us a really interesting opportunity to say, okay, what can we do given all of these incredible experiences that are already on site at the aquarium to extend that experience in a way that makes sense to the individual user's phone, and then to carry that experience beyond the walls of the aquarium into the visitor's lived experience. So that project, there was a lot of data and information that was already present that I was able to build on, and even just from the level of the content, thinking about, okay, these are the facts we want to use. How do we present them in an interesting and meaningful way? But then there are other projects that don't necessarily have that foundational layer that you say, okay, we've got all these different ideas. What do we want to sort of pick and choose and put together to build the most meaningful introduction to that story world? That's been one of the challenges with the project we're doing with Madison Wells, thinking about how you practically can start seeding a relationship with the audience that you then hope will build into a much larger story world. With something like Incident Commander, the framework for the technology was there, but there was opportunity to tell the story of that technology to potential schools that might want to use that technology. So thinking about, okay, how do I present this kind of very raw data in a way that's meaningful and exciting? So it really just, I think it depends on the situation and what you already have to start with. But for me, I think it is a combination of possibility. I love thinking about possibility, and I think that's one of the definitions of rhetoric that's so meaningful to me too. Is sort of carving out I'm going to get it wrong, the exact definition, but it's from I think John Polakos, who talks about rhetoric as possibility and as carving out that space of what is possible. So it's that combination of potential and empathy for the audience and bringing them together in a meaningful way. My personal interest right now for really all of industry is be an advocate for the user. Put yourself in the role of the audience or the user or whatever your relationship is with a real living, breathing person. Don't just think of them as a number or some sort of a commodity, right? These are real people. And one of the most important things that I took away from John Taplin teaching at USC was that this generation is very skeptical. They're very interested in authenticity, and they have excellent ways of detecting when a company or a brand or a creator is not being authentic. So respect that. I think the best way to achieve success as a creator and as someone entering the workforce, a creative workforce, the best thing you can do is to be respectful of the audience and give them something genuine. And the more you put that front and center, I think the better your work will be, and the better your relationship is going to be at the end of the day with your consumer.
Okay, ready?
Totally.
What was the question?
What do you do with all this?
Oh, yeah.
And that's a good
It's
question.
okay, I'll just interview myself. That's fine.
Sorry, it's been a long day.
Yeah.
Yes, what do you do with all of